Hello, welcome. It is another Wednesday and therefore another episode of Weekend Reading. Can you tell I'm trying to get these done a little quicker? They've been dragging a little bit. I wanted these to be more of my fast videos, so let's get to it. What did we do in weekend reading? Well, we go over what trades I read last week, and I tell you which one was my favorite, and I give a slight description of it in case you want to take a read. And then I go over what I'll be reading this weekend and tell you which one I think will be my favorite of this week. Usually what I refer to as my pick of the week. Now, will it be what I actually think is my favorite? You'll have to find out next week. So let's get into it. What did we have last week, you might be asking? Well, we had The Goddamned, Book 2, The Virgin Brides, by Jason Aaron and R.M. Guerra. It was a good read. The Goddamned's a good book. I liked it a lot. I also liked how at the end they connected the first volume of The Goddamned with this volume. Found that very interesting. The most recent, another Future State read, Future State Batman Dark Detective, which was very good. I actually liked it more than the last Batman Future State book. I liked all the side stories. I liked the Batman story overall. Not to be disrespectful to Jace Fox, but Bruce Wayne is just, he's a more established history. He's a more interesting character to people. My pick of the week was Avengers Volume 8, Enter the Phoenix. I just knew, and that's this one is by also by Jason Aaron and a couple of other writers or other artists. I just knew that this one was going to be my favorite. The Avengers has been a very good read in my opinion lately, and I'm a very big fan of Jason Aaron. It was going to be this or The Goddamned in my opinion, and this one was my pick of the week, and it was dead on because I like this one the best. It continued the current Avengers story. It was basically three stories. There was the main core of the story, which was about the Phoenix, sandwiched between two one-issue stories. The first one-issue story was about... It told the story of the Stone Age version of the Phoenix, who is basically a red-haired mutant who just obtained the Phoenix Force when she was a certain age. So basically she was a Stone Age version of Jean Grey, is how they're putting it. She was even a psychic. That was her mutant power. She even found a group of psychics like her and everything. Then the last single-issue read... The last single-issue story was basically wrapping up the events of the main core of the story, the Phoenix story, but it basically led into... It also dealt with the after effects of King in Black, where the vampires actually helped fight off the King in Black and his symbiote army, and because of that, Dracula got to claim that where the vampires are settling in the Ukraine Chernobyl irradiated zone that they've been secluded to by the Russian government. Even though it's in the Ukraine, somehow the Russian government still has control of the Chernobyl. I forget the name of it. That whole area that is inhabitable. Somehow Russia still has control of it. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I guess it's just one of those weird holdovers from the Soviet Union era. But the vampires are there, and because of their helping in defending the world from an alien invasion, Dracula actually convinced the United Nations Security Council to grant him basically control of that area and make it his own little nation for vampires. So vampires have their own country now, and they wanted to, and because of this, Blade was none too happy and was threatening to leave the Avengers, and T'Challa, the Black Panther, came up with a nice little compromise that he thinks will make him happy. When they show up with Blade, Dracula thinks that the Avengers are handing him over for prosecution for killing vampires, when in turn he got the UN to make Blade basically a UN marshal. So basically he's now the sheriff of this vampire nation, and he seemed very thrilled about it. As for the main core of the story, as the story suggests, it has to do with the Phoenix. The Phoenix comes to Earth. It leads to a lot of people showing a lot of interest in it, and the Phoenix somehow draws numerous characters into this place called the White Hot Room, which is a place that when you become one with the Phoenix, you can enter. And so all these characters go there, and then that's basically a waiting area where 2 by 2 they're sent to fight each other as sort of like a contest to see who's worthy of wielding the power of the Phoenix. And when they fight each other, they all get to wield a portion of the Phoenix in their fight. So it's basically powerful characters who are already tough on their own right, now also wielding the power of the Phoenix in these fights all over the Earth. It's several different characters. I believe, let me see. Blah, 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 blah. It starts with Doctor Doom and Captain America fighting, and then in the White Hot Room you see that it's like Moon Girl, Devil Dinosaur, Shauna the She-Devil with Zebu, Valkyrie, Luke Cage, Nighthawk, Echo, Man-Thing, Hyperion, Howard the Duck, which was a weird one, Steel Eagle. Is that what his name? Or no, his name's American Eagle, I think, actually. My bad. American Eagle, the Orb, Hulk, Wolverine, Shang-Chi, Red Widow, Namor, the Submariner, Black Knight, Black Panther, and Captain America. The funny thing is, it's not necessarily about who wins or loses. People lose the fight and they don't even know how. Even if they were actually winning the straight up fight, they could still lose it. So it wasn't what the Phoenix was using as its criteria for picking winners was kind of odd. But in the end, the winner ends up being out of nowhere, completely out of left field. You think it's going to be Captain America or Black Panther, but it actually out of left field ends up being you think it's going to be Black Panther, who was really fighting to get the power, and Captain America, who was actually almost seemed to be forfeiting every fight, like he didn't want it, and he was trying to prepare people he thought should have it for the power. It ends up being Echo, who's a character that hasn't been utilized in any significant way in very many years, but it looks like she's going to be very important now because she wields the Phoenix Force, and that usually makes a character pretty freaking important. So yeah, that was this book. It was very good. Avengers Volume 8, Enter the Phoenix. What is this week? Well, it's another one of these weeks where we only have 2 reads, because it's been pretty light on what I've been picking up this week. Just not a lot of stuff has been coming out, so we'll see if there will be more. I don't know. I literally only picked up one thing this week, so God only knows what's going to happen going forward. Maybe it'll be time to look on Amazon for other things that I've been interested in but haven't been actually, this isn't important. This week, like I said, we only have 2. First up, we got Black Panther Volume 9, The Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda Part 4. This has been a very interesting story involving space travel, time travel, all sorts of shit. Let's see. The end of an era for the Black Panther. Ta-Nehisi Coates, I hope I'm saying that name right. Landmark Run reaches a tipping point as the ruthless Njidaka comes to Earth. To protect our planet from Emperor Njidaka's violent invasion, the nation of Wakanda must go to war against its own future, as I said. And its first, best, and only hope lies in the Panther. But where is he? Even the gods are beginning to despair. But Bast, the Panther God, will not abandon her avatar, even if she has to recruit an outsider to save him. Coates brings T'Challa full circle back to the home he left behind and the crown he has never fully accepted. This is the story of a king who sought to be a hero who was reduced to a slave, and a slave who advanced into legend. Collecting Black Panther 19 through 25 by Ta-Nehisi Coates, Daniel Acuna, Ryan Bodenheim, Brian Stelfreeze, Michael Garland, Chris O'Halloran, and Laura Martin. This has been a solid story. I'm very interested to see how it all works out. So, but as good as it's been, it's not my pick of the week. My pick of the week is another Future State one, though not as big as last week's, and certainly not as big as that Superman one. This one is Future State Suicide Squad. This one should be interesting because I didn't realize the Suicide Squad would warrant its own independent Future State book, but here we are. Let's see what's in it. A glimpse into the possible dark future of the DC Universe reveals stories filled with dark turns, darker actions, and dark possibilities for heroes and villains alike. Ooh. The future of the Suicide Squad sees the clandestine teen hunting its former leader, Amanda Waller, on Earth 3. That's interesting. The once young and optimistic Teen Titans face some of the former students of Titans Academy as they team with Red X for one last chance at redemption. Picking up on those events, Shazam hides a mysterious secret he's held since his time at Titans Academy, while trying to undo a literal deal with the devil. Even further in the future, the world sits cold and dead with a few survivors braving its barren wastelands. Can a new Swamp Thing help humanity regain a foothold, or will he extinguish the last flames of hope? And in the 853rd century, Black Adam rules a peaceful planet Kandak until reality itself is threatened by a menace tying back to the Teen Titans and their failures in the 21st century. This feels like it should have been called Future State Teen Titans. Just saying, there seems to be a lot of Titan stuff related to it. Featuring the writing talents of Robbie Thomas, Tim Sheridan, Jeremy Adams, and Ram V, alongside artists Javier Fernandez, Rafa Sandoval, Eduardo Penzica, Mike Perkins, and Fernando Pazarin. I think I'm saying that right. Sorry if I'm not. This volume collects Future State Suicide Squad 1 and 2, Future State Teen Titans 1 and 2, Future State Shazam 1 and 2, and Future State Swamp Thing 1 and 2, combining some of the most exciting and unexpected stories of DC's hit Future State event. Where does the Black Adam story fit in? It must be a backup story, probably in Shazam. That would make sense. But, yeah. This looks interesting, for sure. I might be wrong about this one. This one, it really could be an either or. Kind of a coin flip situation. But we'll see. So that was that. So now, what is the question of the week? Okay, this week's question is, I've written them down, just so I know. This one's an interesting one because in last week's one, I kind of hit on the heroes, a little bit about are the heroes good. I questioned the real necessity and goodness of heroes. This time I'm questioning how bad are the villains? Basically, my question is, who is the most sympathetic villain in your standard comics? I mean, there's a lot of villains, and every now and then they try to give them complicated stories to make them seem more human, make them more relatable, make them almost sympathetic, so you can kind of get into their cause. I mean, some characters are completely unsympathetic. They're straight up monsters, like, the Red Skull. I mean, he's a sociopathic Nazi. It's kind of hard to think he's in any way, shape, or form sympathetic. But though, if you look at his backstory, he's an orphan who was rejected his whole life, and the only person who ever showed him any approval was Adolf Hitler. So there are attempts to kind of humanize him in a way. Even arrogant characters like Dr. Doom or Lex Luthor have had, who seem just, because they're just arrogant assholes who think they're better than everybody, that means they can do whatever they want. Even they get some background that kind of makes them sympathetic. Like Lex Luthor has gotten a background that he grew up just some poor kid who was, whose father was a angry, abusive drunk. Or Doctor Doom. He grew up Romani, and he when he was part of a group of people who were driven out of their homelands, and his mother died when he was a kid. His mother was a witch who died when he was a kid, and her soul was stolen by the devil, and all sorts of crazy shit about him. There's a lot of magic into the Doctor Doom story that a lot of people don't know about, but it's hard to see them as sympathetic because they're such assholes. There's characters who have sort of blended the line between hero and villain sometimes, that it's hard to see like what they are, who also have tragic backstories, even to the point where they're maybe kind of crazy, like say your Harley Quinns or your Deadpools. And like I said, you're not even sure what they are anymore. Then there's characters who aren't so crazy but also have tragic backstories that and their motivations aren't necessarily evil, like Catwoman or Poison Ivy. But I think it requires more than a tragic background, because you're always going to have some sort of tragedy in your life that's going to make you sympathetic. Everybody's human, or human-esque. They're not all human. Some of these characters are aliens, but you get what I mean. There's humanity to them. So it has to be more than that what makes them sympathetic. So I think it has to be a combination of two things. I think it has to be, do they have a sympathetic backstory, but are also their purpose sympathetic, even if what they do isn't necessarily good. Like I mentioned Poison Ivy before. She's an eco-terrorist who has killed people and committed numerous crimes, and she seems to utterly hate humanity. But it's also because she wants to save the world. She's a Greenpeace nut to an insane degree. She wants to save plant life, which is an important thing, because as humans, we kind of have a history of destroying plant life and not thinking highly of it, even though we absolutely require it. Without plants, we don't have oxygen, and then we're fucked. So she does seem sympathetic, and even the fact that in her backstory she was tricked by a doctor she trusted, who turned her into this weird plant woman hybrid that she's become. So there are sympathetic things in her story, but I wouldn't call her the most sympathetic. My choice for who the most sympathetic villain is kind of an easy one. He's a character who started as a villain and then has been heroic and then been villainous and then heroic and villainous again, and now it's so back and forth. And he is kind of an arrogant asshole, but his backstory is super sympathetic. He watched his whole family die. He was in prison wrongfully at a young age. He managed to survive that, and he, ran off with a woman he loved. He ran off with a woman he loved and tried to start a family peacefully, but then still was hunted because he was different. And and these people who hunted him ended up killing his daughter, and he in a fit of rage, killed the people who killed his daughter, and that frightened his wife so much that she abandoned him and left him. And then he spent his whole life deciding that he was going to dedicate himself to protecting his people from the ostracization. That's not a word. Hunt his people from what inevitably was going to come for them. That he was part of a different group of people who are inevitably going to be singled out and hunted, imprisoned, and maybe executed, because he had seen that sort of thing happen before, and he knew it was going to happen again. So he was dedicated by any means necessary to protecting his people. That was his whole purpose, even if he did horrible things to do it. Now, if you still can't figure out who I mean by that description, you really don't read a lot of comics, because it's pretty fucking obvious who I mean. I'm talking about Magneto. Magneto from the X-Men, who is currently a member of the X-Men, sorta. Every X-Men villain is kind of technically a member of the X-Men now. The X-Men have gotten very weird. But he's very much with the X-Men again, as he has jumped back and forth to doing numerous times over the years. But The guy was put in a concentration camp after watching his family get murdered. He tried to live a life of peace, had that taken away from him, then decided, you know what, I'm part of a different group again, and this different group is going to get hunted for what it is. I've seen it happen before. No amount of happy thoughts is going to make that go away, but I'm not going to let that happen a second time. I'm going to step up. I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to stand in the way, and I'm going to assert my dominance in this situation to make sure that nobody can assert it over me and mine. It may be a twisted point of view, but you can sympathize with it. Seeing where he comes from, how can you not? So yes, Magneto is my choice for the most sympathetic villain. But maybe you disagree. Maybe you think there's someone out there who has a more sympathetic point of view. While I was talking, I stuttered a little bit because I realized that part of what I was saying kind of sounded like the character Bane about how he was imprisoned at a young age. And he kind of comes off very similar to Magneto because he grew up in sort of harsh conditions that warped him. But he doesn't have such noble intentions. He's another arrogant asshole who thinks he should be in charge of everything and thinks he should dominate people. So it's not the same thing. Magneto doesn't always commit noble acts, but he does have noble intentions. Even if he's an arrogant asshole who thinks he should be in charge, he still wants what's best for his people ultimately. So that's the one thing that he and Charles Xavier always had in common. But they went about it through very different means. And like many people will point out, Charles Xavier is no fucking angel. He recruited a group of kids and then sent them out to be fucking soldiers. That's super fucked up. But that's a whole other story. Yeah, that's who I think. Magneto, most sympathetic villain in comic books. But if you disagree, let me know. But yeah, that's it for this week. Went a little longer than I wanted, but what are you going to do? So yeah, that's what I'm reading this weekend. What are you reading this weekend? But whatever it is, I hope you have a good weekend. Later.